Let's jump to this story from NBC News. This is crazy. 2 U.S. Marines assaulted in Turkey by nationalist mob chanting "Yankee, go home." A video of the incident showed someone placing a bag over the head of the Marine. So this happened in what city was this? It was in Turkey, and it was Izmir. So these were, what were these? Were these Marines? Because I've heard it reported both that they were just Navy, but others saying that they were Marines.
I've always seen Marine.
I've seen
Marines as well.
Yeah. The group restrained one Marine before one of them places a bag over his head. Moments later, another man can be seen charging the group. None of the service members are in uniform. I'll pull that video up in a second, but I want to jump to this too. I want this to be a part of it. Turkey is seeking to join BRICS. This is massive on the global stage. Turkey joins BRICS, putting Western control of the Bosphorus at risk. Not that we're very happy with how Turkey operates as it is, but the Bosphorus connects the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. So this is shifting global power from NATO in the West into BRICS, which means big bad things for the United States. You combine these kinds of stories with Turkish nationalists attacking U.S. personnel.
We have real problems.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost as though the best thing for the United States would be to close the border, become energy independent, and bring American manufacturing back.
Okay, Donald Trump.
Perhaps.
It is funny how we have
Crazy
solutions to
idea.
these problems,
We do
and
have
we
some
just apparently
solutions.
cannot implement them without, I don't know, being racist? Question mark?
I think this
Question
goes
mark.
to, we have an inability to acknowledge good and evil exist in the country and the
We have
world.
an inability to acknowledge good and evil, and it's because we abandoned religion.
I
And
think-
we replaced God with the false idol of self and replaced the soul with gender. And now we have completely and totally lost our way. Gender and identity. You could put both of those
We
in.
do have the video. We can pull this up. It's they just are screaming and they look at this. Wow. And they start punching him. So apparently a bunch of these guys got arrested, but BRICS wants their own currency. Saudi Arabia is off the petrodollar. Oil is being traded internationally in yuan and rubles. The
And we're
American
cutting-
empire is
yeah,
done.
And we're cutting back on Gulf of Mexico drilling for some reason because the Biden and Harris administration doesn't want us to do that anymore.
So question, because we've talked about this a couple of years ago. Is this the intentional decline of the United States in order to avoid Thucydides' trap?
that was sort of the Obama thing, right? That was sort of the rumor of Obama, that he thought that his job was to manage the decline of the United States.
The fear being that with China rising on the global scale, a rising economic power, whenever there's a rising economic power that is on the verge of supplanting the dominant power, there is a very high tendency for large-scale war to break out. The liberal economic order has believed since the 50s, these is Council on Foreign Relations people, high-level U.S. and European politicians believe that another world war would end humanity. So is this them saying, okay, transfer our assets to China, China's taking over, and the United States, and move on?
I actually think China's decline is more dangerous than America's decline. And this is where I come in with where I think Elon Musk is correct. You were mentioning, like, you know, the climate change and all those things. And you asked about kids and presidents and everything else, which I think is an interesting question. China's population's peaked. And if you look at the projections, because of the one-child China, in the next
One-child policy?
Yeah, in the next 50 or 60 years, China's population could be cut in half.
They
And
got rid of that, though.
Now they have, but
yeah.
but the problem is
It's a little late.
so locked in,
Yeah.
and they had so many more male children than female children, and all those things.
they killed their lady.
They had a lot of
babies.
But one of the aspects of history, if you study it, is wars often happen not when countries are at their peak power, but when the peak power has passed and you can see a rapid decline coming, which is why I worry that China in a decline begins to act more aggressively than China on the ascent. Because if China thought, hey, in 40 years, we're going to be the superior economy to the United States, I think they could afford to wait. My concern is in 40 years, China's going to be severely diminished. And I think my concern on the United States side there is in 1980, I was mentioning Jimmy Carter. He got defeated to a large for many reasons, but one was because Iran had taken the hostages, and he was so weak that he couldn't get them back. Hirsch Goldberg, Poland's mother, spoke at the DNC, and a few weeks later, Hamas put a bullet in the back of that kid's head.
They trotted her out on stage to beg for her son's life.
Wow.
And then she just spoke at her son's funeral.
Yeah.
And Hamas disrespected American power to such an extent and did not fear our retaliation that they put a bullet in that kid's head right after his mom spoke at the DNC.
Wow.
Evil, and I do believe Hamas is evil, responds to fear and power. They have no fear of us, and they do not believe that we have the power to act.
Well, and they're kind of right because, the United States instructed Israel on how to conduct
Correct.
their self-defense and said, stay out of Rafah. And now an American's been killed. An American civilian's been killed.
Did you see the report that a Kremlin official had said Kamala Harris is more predictable than Trump? I think on a lot of fronts internationally, everyone looks at the Biden-Harris administration and the potential Harris-Walz administration as a signal of the downturn of America. It signals weakness. They know that they can do
Well, of course it
things
does
that
signal weakness.
They know they'll be able to do things, and they have been able to do things under Biden that Trump would just never allow. And part of that is just inherent personality. Trump is better on the international stage, and he brings more diplomatically to the White House than anyone the Democrats have currently offered
Putin
up.
and Xi fear Trump because they're not sure of what he's going to do.
Well, and that's one of the best things about Trump
That's
is
right.
that he's unpredictable. So, if you come out there and do something terrible to the United States, Trump might just be like, nuke him. And that's
what he
perfectly
said.
plausible. And
had
I
that-
love that.
He had that
He
interview.
breaks game theory.
Yes.
That's what it is. Like,
Because
what Biden's going to do or what Kamala's going to do because
They're
it's
going to
like
do like a proportionate response,
That's right.
and they're going to
It's
say
like,
give a little.
you
and
got a
then pull
poker
back.
table in here. The toughest guy to play poker against is a guy you don't know whether he's bluffing or not.
Oh,
And it can make different choices based on that.
Well, let's play that analogy because I love it. When you're playing against your average player in poker, you have a general idea of the kind of hands they're going to play, the moves they're going to make, and you try to predict them. But when someone shows up who doesn't know what they're doing, this is fascinating. I'll try to explain this in the least jargony way possible. If you're playing with a bunch of regular guys and they're all of moderate skill, are you a big player?
I'm not great. I'm not great at math, sadly, but I love poker. So yes.
So you might, if I'm playing at a game and I know that all the players are regulars, they play all the time, I might actually try to exploit that and play a weaker hand. Maybe I could bluff. Maybe I can try and come underneath. What does that mean? So if two guys are making big bets, they might both have ace king. They might, and then they're blocking each other, it's called. So I might play 5-6 suited, which is a lower percentage chance to win, but because they're bumping into each other, I'm going to take them both out. The problem arrives when a dude shows up who's dumb as a box of rocks, but loaded and bets on anything and everything.
Can't
now,
read him.
It restricts you to only a very small range of hands to play because the guy's going to bet everything no matter what. And there's something called fold equity. I mean, I'm getting too jargony. The point is this. When you get a wild card like Trump, you have to play as tight and as close to the chest as possible because there's no room for error. There's no bluffing. Trump's going to call you down. You say, I'm going to invade. I'll nuke you. And you go, he might.
Yeah.
You know Biden won't do it. Biden's scared of fallout. Trump, you might be thinking, Trump's more scared of his base. And his base wants action. So Trump had that famous interview, the phone call, where he said, he told Xi and Putin, he told Xi, if you invade Taiwan, I'm going to nuke Beijing. And Putin, if you invade Ukraine, I'm going to nuke Moscow. He's like, I don't know if they believed me, maybe 5%, but it was enough.
Yeah. I think that's 100% right. And that bothers the quote unquote foreign relations experts because they want to have their back channel conversations and say, well, if you do X, then we're going to do Y. But those authoritarians don't respect the general rules. And so you need people who are willing to upset the calculus. And I think Trump was. I don't think that Putin would have ever invaded Ukraine if Trump were president. I don't think Hamas would have attacked on October 7th Israel like they did if Trump were president. I really
Start
don't.
looking, like the Wall Street Journal had extensive reporting on the planning of that attack, and it started after Biden came into office.
Yes.
That's when it started because they knew that there was a weakness. They knew that Biden was vulnerable to his anti-Israel base, and they went for it. And that was planned.
More importantly, the Ukraine tensions were escalating under Obama intentionally, and everything froze when Donald Trump got in for a variety of reasons. One, the decimation of ISIS Under Obama, ISIS was growing and growing out of control. Trump gets in, Ukraine escalation stops, ISIS obliterated. Biden gets back in, everything kicks back off again.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is also true, again, of Russia. If you look at the prisoner swap that just happened recently, I think the only American prisoner who wasn't held captive in Russia or detained in Russia before Biden got into office was Paul Whelan, the U.S. Marine. Everyone else was after Biden was in office. And, you know, you can say all kinds of things. There's a lot to be skeptical of that prisoner swap, but I really do think that there's a strategic reason that Americans became more vulnerable to being wrongfully detained in Russia after Biden became president. Russia knows Biden is not able to negotiate, and they're looking at Kamala Harris and saying, cool, round two.
Well, how about the fact that we got Brittany Griner and they got the Merchant of Death?
Right. They got the
I mean, by the way, she actually violated Russian drug law. So it's not as if she was just grabbed and did nothing wrong. This wasn't, they're claiming, obviously, that Evan Gersovich was just a Wall Street Journal reporter and did nothing at all wrong. Brittany Griner admitted she violated Russian drug law, and they got the Merchant of Death back during a friggin' war, and we got a WNBA player?
Right.
I mean, it's like the worst trade of all time.
But they left Mark Fogel, who in a similar position
Correct.
also violated Russian drug law, but is in much worse condition than Brittany Griner. He's got all kinds of health problems. He's older, and he didn't come home in the prison.
He has the problem that can't be handled, which is he's a white guy.
Yeah.
I mean, Brittany Griner, if she wasn't a black lesbian basketball player, would still be, if that was a white guy who did what Brittany Griner did, wasn't an athlete, wasn't famous, that person would still be in prison.
Do you remember Biden released all the photo ops with her I don't know, spouse, wife, whatever, from the Oval Office, being like, I was just there having this moment. Like, they use that as a celebrity photo op. And yet all of these Americans were detained in Russia because of the Biden administration, because he is a weak president. Again, Harris is, I would say, probably worse.
Which is where Trump is right on negotiation. The thing that Trump gets better than anybody is leverage. You give him, I mean, that's all that real estate guys do, right? They find a leverage point and then they exploit it. And Trump rightly pointed out that every time we make a trade with a terrorist organization in this way, we just incentivize the arrest of more Americans to create more bargaining chips for Russia or other maladroit actors out there.
Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. on this channel. Subscribe, and we'll see you all there.